What if I told you that the entire course of women's rights, travel literature, and our understanding of the Titanic disaster hinged on one woman's survival? Helen Churchill Candy, a passenger on that ill-fated ship, fought for her life in the icy Atlantic waters. But in our alternate history, she doesn't make it. Imagine a world where Helen's voice is silenced forever on that fateful night. No groundbreaking articles on women's suffrage, no captivating travel books about far-off lands, and a gaping hole in our Titanic narrative. How would history have unfolded without her? Let's dive into this butterfly effect and see how one life can change everything. The silenced voice of women's rights. Picture this. It's 1912, and the world of women's rights is about to take an unexpected turn. Helen Churchill Candy, a fierce advocate for women's suffrage, has just disappeared beneath the icy waves of the Atlantic. In our timeline, she survived the Titanic disaster and went on to become a powerful voice for women's rights. But in this alternate reality, her voice is forever lost to the depths. You might be thinking, could one person really make that much of a difference? Well, let me tell you, Helen was no ordinary suffragette. She was a wordsmith extraordinaire, crafting arguments that could make even the most stubborn opponents of women's rights shift uncomfortably in their seats. Her absence leaves a gaping hole in the movement's arsenal. Without Helen's persuasive articles, the suffrage movement stumbles. Her knack for swaying politicians on the fence about women's voting rights is sorely missed. The movement starts to struggle, losing the momentum it had been building. The anti-suffrage groups seize their chance. With Helen's sharp counterarguments silenced, they gain ground, spreading their message far and wide. Public opinion shifts, inch by agonizing inch, away from women's rights. As the years tick by, progress slows to a crawl. The 19th Amendment, which should have given women the right to vote in 1920, faces delay after delay. The political landscape of the early 20th century looks markedly different, with women's voices in politics remaining muffled for years longer than they should have been. But here's where it gets really interesting. Helen wasn't just a suffragette, she was also a renowned travel writer. Her books about far-off lands inspired countless women to broaden their horizons. Her dual roles as suffragette and traveler were intertwined, each feeding into the other. Her global perspective lent weight to her arguments for equality, while her fight for women's rights inspired her to push boundaries in her travels. Without Helen's travelogues, fewer women dare to dream beyond their front porches. The idea of a woman exploring the world solo remains shocking for years longer. And let's not forget about the Titanic itself. Helen's vivid first-hand account of the disaster played a crucial role in shaping our understanding of that fateful night. Without her testimony, some of the details of the Titanic's final hours remain shrouded in mystery. The absence of Helen's voice even affects the world of literature. Her way with words inspired other female authors. Without her influence, some of the great women writers of the early 20th century might never have picked up a pen. In this alternate world, the ripples of Helen's absence spread far and wide, touching politics, travel, literature, and beyond. It's a stark reminder of how one person, in the right place, at the right time, can shape the course of history. A hole in the Titanic's story. Helen's vivid account of the Titanic's final hours wasn't just another survivor's story. It was a key piece of the puzzle that helped us understand the human side of the disaster. She painted a picture of chaos on deck, with passengers in denial even as the ship was going down. Can you imagine believing a ship is unsinkable as it's tilting beneath your feet? That's exactly what Helen described. Her observations revealed how this misplaced faith contributed to lifeboats being launched half empty. But Helen's testimony did more than just set the scene. It shone a spotlight on the stark class distinctions during the evacuation. She noted how first-class passengers were often prioritized for lifeboats, while third-class passengers faced significant barriers to safety. Without her account, this aspect of the disaster might have remained in the shadows, altering our understanding of the social dynamics at play that night. Now, let's talk about the official inquiries into the Titanic disaster. These investigations shaped public perception and led to changes in maritime safety regulations. But in our alternate timeline, they're missing Helen's crucial voice. While technical facts about the ship's construction and the iceberg collision were well documented, Helen's personal narrative brought the human experience of the tragedy to the forefront. Her testimony added layers of emotional depth and social context that cold, hard facts alone couldn't provide. And what about the ship's final moments? Helen's account included a description of the Titanic's last plunge into the ocean. This vivid imagery has become part of our collective memory of the disaster. Historians have used her detailed recollections to help piece together the timeline of that tragic night. But in a world without Helen, that piece of the puzzle is missing. It's like trying to watch the climax of a movie with a chunk of the film cut out. Helen's account also hinted at a romantic involvement with an unidentified male passenger. This detail reflects the personal relationships affected by the disaster, reminding us that the tragedy extended beyond mere survival. Without Helen's story, we lose this human touch, this reminder that real people with real lives and loves were on that ship. The absence of Helen's account leaves us with a Titanic-sized hole in our historical understanding. Her unique perspective provided insights into the social dynamics and personal experiences of those on board that we just can't get from anyone else. It's like trying to complete a jigsaw puzzle with a crucial piece missing. You can see the general picture, but something important is clearly not there. The unexplored wonders of Angkor Wat. Helen Churchill Candy's survival from the Titanic set in motion a chain of events that would change our understanding of an entire civilization. Her groundbreaking work on Angkor Wat transformed our view of Southeast Asian culture. You see, Helen wasn't just a Titanic survivor or a women's rights activist. She was also a trailblazing travel writer. In 1924, Helen published Angkor the Magnificent, the first major English-language study of the ruins of Angkor Wat, the incredible ancient Khmer temple in Cambodia. Her book was filled with vivid descriptions and photographs that brought Angkor Wat to life for readers. This kind of evocative writing sparked widespread interest in Cambodian culture and history. Helen's work laid the foundation for preserving this ancient wonder. You have to understand, attention means funding, and funding is crucial when it comes to protecting ancient sites. Without Helen's influence, Angkor Wat would have faced greater threats from neglect and looting. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But the impact of Helen's work didn't stop at preservation. It jump-started the modern tourist market in Cambodia. This wasn't just about selfies in front of ancient temples. It had real economic impacts on Cambodia and accelerated cultural exchange with the West. Now, you might be thinking, surely someone else would have written about Angkor Wat eventually, right? And you'd be right. But Helen's unique perspective as a female traveler in the early 20th century added a whole new dimension to the story. She wasn't just writing about far-off places. She was showing other women that they could explore the world too. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. Helen's work wasn't just about Angkor Wat or travel writing. It was a crucial bridge between East and West. Her books, including New Journeys in Old Asia, opened up a whole new world to Western readers. She even became a popular lecturer on the Far East, further shaping how people in the West viewed Southeast Asian culture. Helen's influence accelerated cultural exchange between East and West by decades. And that acceleration? It didn't just affect a few history buffs or travel enthusiasts. It altered our global understanding of art, architecture, and ancient civilizations. Without Helen, we might have walked around with an incomplete world map in our heads for much longer. So, the next time you see a picture of Angkor Wat or hear about Cambodia's rich cultural heritage, remember Helen Churchill Candy. Her survival from the Titanic didn't just save one life. It helped preserve and share an entire civilization's legacy with the world. Conclusion. What if Helen Churchill Candy hadn't survived the Titanic? Her story reminds us how a single life can shape history in unexpected ways, influencing women's rights and our understanding of ancient cultures. But there are countless other unsung heroes waiting to be discovered. People whose actions have quietly shaped our world like a hidden treasure trove of history. Want to uncover more fascinating stories? Dive into biographies of lesser-known figures, check out your local historical society, or join online history forums. You could even support organizations preserving hidden narratives. Who knows, you might stumble upon the next Helen Churchill Candy, a person whose story could change how we see the world. Stay tuned.